Hello and welcome. I'm Father George Williams with the Catholic Prison Ministry Coalition. And today our webinar is going to be looking at alternatives to sentencing. This comes under the umbrella of restorative justice, and most of us who have worked in any kind of correctional ministry are aware of the term restorative justice. It's used a lot, but very often we don't know what it means. And so we're going to talk to people who actually do it. And the idea is that we can learn from them and hopefully incorporate some of their practices into our local communities as well. For those of you who are joining us, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat feature at the bottom of your screen, and I will monitor them, and then I'll pass them on to our panelists. So today we have Father Larry Dowling. He's the pastor of St. Agatha Parish in Chicago's North Lawndale community. He serves as the board president for the Active Foundation and as a moderator for Priests for Justice for Immigrants. He's involved in local community organizing efforts, criminal justice reform, restorative justice projects, and anti-violence issues. He also has served on the anti-racism implementation team for the Archdiocese. He's a restorative justice circle keeper, and he's served on the steering committee for the first restorative justice community court in Chicago. And joining him is Jacquelyn Ingram, who also works with the restorative justice community as a circle keeper, both in the community and with the community court, the Restorative Justice Community Court. Jackie's worked as a social worker, as a teacher. She has a master's degree in elementary education from Northern Illinois University. And both of them come here with a wealth of experience and insights into how we can actually see restorative justice done. So welcome both of you. It's wonderful to have you with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Father George. Appreciate it. Thanks. Good to be with everyone. And again, my name is Father Larry Dowling. I'm pastor. Actually, we have a new parish name, St. Simon of Cyrene, who's the African man who helped Jesus carry his cross. But we have two locations: St. Agatha, where I'm located, and then St. Martin Porus in an adjoining community in Austin. So So wanted to just talk a little bit quickly about restorative justice and how we've employed it at the parish. We've been working, with restorative justice principles and practices for probably a little over 10 years now in the parish community through various connections with individuals. Some of them are healing circles. Some of them are just talking circles, getting to know each other, building relationships. We do anti-racism circles once a month on second Tuesday of every month. And we have two staff members who go into the jail twice a week to visit men in the jail and to work with them in circle on life skills, manhood and fatherhood skills, so that when they do get out of jail, that they are able to come to us and we can help them, get placed in jobs and employment and housing and the other resources that they need along the way. Restorative justice is, pretty much part of the fabric of the parish, and we employ it in a number of different ways. And one of those ways is, with the establishment a few years ago of the the Cook County Restorative Justice Community Court here in North Lawndale. It was the first community court in the city, in the state actually, and it is based in restorative justice practices. The coming together was mainly 7 individuals from the community, from various agencies. I was one of those, the initial steering committee, and then 7 from the system. From Chief Justice's office to the public defender to state's attorney, across the board. And together we designed how this court would work, and then continue to build on that to actually have a start date, which I can't even remember how long ago it is now. Jackie would know that, but we started the court a number of years ago now, and it really is designed to with restorative justice, restorative principles in mind, that someone who enters into the court can eventually leave the court, should they follow, the path that, of getting to know a circle keeper, building relationships, coming up with a plan for themselves as to how they will make amends for what they've done. And then at the end, ending up without a record of, of the thing that they did. So that, in a nutshell, is what we came together and did. And key in that are our circle keepers. Jackie is one of the two original circle keepers in the court, and I'm going to have her describe, kind of from day one when someone is arrested, what the path is through the court, and and how the process works. The key, I just want to point out before Jackie dives in, is that it really is about, building relationship with the individual, helping them realize that they are part of a community, having the community share, the impact with them on, what they've done affects the community, but at the same time, community, expressing compassion and wanting them to, get back on their feet and, actually being contributing members to the community. Circle keepers originally were not funded by the court, and we pushed hard on that for a number of years, because they're probably the most important part of this court. And so finally, a few years ago, we actually were able to create salary for them. And so again, very thankful, Jackie, from the very beginning, and her partner, Patricia Winters, were able to, stick with it. And, for the first few years doing just volunteer work and then some stipend work, and then finally getting paid for what they're doing. So anyway, I'll turn it over to Jackie if you want to take the group through kind of what's the process from, day one when someone's arrested.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here. So Patricia Winters and I are the circle keepers for North Lawndale. One thing we have to understand is our group, we have young participants from the age of 18 to 26. These are first-time offenders, and they're nonviolent crimes. So what happens is the assistant state's attorney, the person comes to the court, assistant state's attorney with their public defender will say, I think I have a client that is probably a good fit for this program. They get involved. The assistant state's attorney brings that person, gives them a court date. That court date, that's when they meet our program. In the program, they can have their own private attorney, or they have a public defender that is assigned to them. We have paperwork for them to accept what we have in the program. They agree to work through these parameters, and they join that day. They sign paperwork, and we begin the process. The process is really not that hard, but it can be very time consuming, because after that process, they come to court, then they're given a court date to come back to talk to a social service person. And that way we get to know that individual through a process. It's called the ORAS. So the social service person will do an ORAS on each individual person that comes to our court. After that ORAS is done, we get the participant will get a circle keeper. That circle keeper will help them through the process. Our circles can be from, we would say, the minimum would be 5 or 4, but we would like to have as many as we possibly can, so that person is well ingrained in, number one, what he did wrong or she did wrong, and how we can turn back the way they thought about doing this particular crime. After we get what they call a repair of harm agreement. I would say those are lists of goals that they said to repair the harm in our community. This is what we do. And we like to say that that's a contract between that participant and the court. Once they sign that, it is a binding agreement that they have to do that to get their case dismissed. So once we get the repair of harm and everybody's all set, the court has accepted it. The next step is to get their case managers to help them complete this. We try to follow each participant with the case manager so that they know that they are not alone in this process. We want to surround them with positive hub members that can help them attain the different goals that they want. And then once that happens, we make sure that they come back, the goals are accepted, they have completed everything, and their case is dismissed. Now, it may sound like I did it really quick, but it takes between 6 months and a year to complete this program. And I have to say that it has been, for me, and working with Pat, because I don't think I could have done it without her. When you work with another group, you always get a yin and yang. And usually we work very well off of each other. It's always good to have a second person in that circle with you. We always like to say we are not experts. We are good listeners. We don't force anybody. We've been here a long time and we are always learning new things. It's always a work in progress. And to do this particular work, you have to have an open mind to say, I don't want to judge this person on what he did or she did. I want them to come to us, talk to us, respect us, and we put goals in that circle so that we can come out of this circle with a agreement that they agreed to, not us, not our words, and they would like to change the way they think about things. Like I said, a lot of things that we have are all nonviolent. We used to have drugs and then we progressed to guns. And these are people that are not using guns, they just carry it for protection in our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is a little volatile than most, but everybody's carrying it for protection. So if you're going to carry a gun, we just want to make sure that you know the rules and regulations of how to carry a gun, why are you carrying a gun, and things like that. So we have implemented a lot of things that can help them through this process so that they can come out of it thinking better and making better choices for their lives. So I hope that I've answered some of the questions that people might have.
But
Yes.
Jackie, if I can just take us back to the circle process a
Yes,
little bit.
sir.
And if you can talk a little bit about, so how many circles typically do you have? And how many does it take to actually get them to trust and then for them to start, really thinking about how they want to repair the harm?
You know what? That's a very good question, Father Larry. In the beginning, we would say the pre-circle is our main circle. It's an introduction to the circle process and what we are doing and what the court expects of us. So Pat and I, we talk about us first. We give them a picture of who we are. You have to understand these people don't know us. I may have seen them at a store, but we don't really know each other. So they have to know us. And we had that introduction, and then they introduced themselves to us. So I would say it would take maybe between 1 or 2 circles to really get to have that person open up with us. After that circle process, we always want them to say and do, this is your circle. Normally, I would say we can do 4 circles, 5 circles, but it really depends on the individual. And sometimes we may have more than that. And that's no fault of the individual. It's just the way either their work is and they can't do it as often as we want to. So we try to spread everything out. But the majority of our circles, I would say a maximum of 5 circles with a minimum of maybe 4. I know Pat and I, we do have maybe a person that did maybe 6 or 7. But, that's understandable. And that's not a punitive thing. We always say this is not about quantity. It's about quality of what you want to do in that circle. But usually after the second circle, Pat and I are not, forceful people. We don't make the people, we don't point fingers at them. We don't judge them. And to be in this process, you can't judge them. You can't say, well, this is what I would do in a circle. And this is what happened to my family. Because we did have a young lady said, I don't care about that person. I want to know, how can you help me? And we took it as not a negative, because they're absolutely right. We are there for them. And if they can't be open-minded and honest about being in the circle, it's just not going to help. And we also have to say everything that we say in circle is confidential. So the judge can't say, well, what did you guys talk about in the circle? The judge can ask us, what did you like about the circle? What didn't you like? And even if it's something negative, that negativity can only make us a better circle keeper. We write it down and say, oh, I never thought about that, but that's a good point. And that's, I guess you could say, that's one of the reasons that a lot of people open up to us quicker than most. We don't try to judge. We don't try to be their mother. We don't try to be their grandmother, their sister, their aunt. We just want to be realistic people to say that you live in my community. I want to help you because I have a vested interest in our community. And if you live in it, I have a vested interest in you. I hope I answered that question, Father Larry.
That's good. So is anyone else in the circle with you and Jackie and the person?
We have the case manager, and we also can have the victim, if the victim would like to join. We would love to have him or her in that circle with us. But if we don't, we have what they call a surrogate victim. And a surrogate is just a substitute to give that participant. This is how I would feel if that had happened to me. We want to give them a full view of how what you did affected the people in our community. We use that word a lot, our. We always say we all could get stopped by the cops. We are not privy to, saying, oh, you're in the restorative justice court, so you don't get stopped by the cops. No, everybody gets stopped. So it's an open thing. So we like to use the words like we and our instead of you. You did this. A lot of the people coming to the circle, they're very tentative at first, but like I said, after that second circle, I think they have opened up. They get to see a bit of us, and then we get to see more of them. And the more circles we have, the better the conversation gets, and it gets longer and longer sometimes. So our circles can last from 45 minutes to an hour. We like to say anything more than an hour, we don't want to waste anybody's time. We want to get to the meat and try to do the best we can to get them through this process. So I hope that helps.
No, that helps. Yeah. The one side comment, just real quick. So for a period of time when we started the court, it wasn't clear. In fact, it was pretty clear that conversations that were happening in circles were not held confidentially. If anyone subpoenaed them. And so the Catholic Lawyers Guild in Chicago managed to push through legislation a couple of years ago now that protects, circles, done in association with the court. So the confidentiality is protected within the circle. So just to be clear about that. The other piece I think is important is the case manager and how the case manager basically picks up after the repair farm agreement is agreed to by everyone in the court, including the judge, and that the case manager is then on to help that individual fulfill the agreement. That's where the community comes in, and the case manager works with various agencies in the community to make those connections and help them fulfill their agreement. And then, Jackie, I don't know whether this is still true or not, but is there also the development of kind of a life plan after the court?
I didn't.
So
like
is
a transitional?
Yeah. So is there still a transitional plan that
Yes.
they developed as well? Okay.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
So the transitional plan is once that person has their case is going to be dismissed, the case manager has to write up what we call a transitional plan, transitioning out of restorative justice court and back into the world. They talk about long-term goals that they want to do. They talk about we've completed our short-term goals. Now, for me to move forward, my long-term goals are this. This is what I want to do. This is what I started to do before I got involved in the court. So that transitional plan is extremely important. And as a matter of fact, we cannot dismiss a case without the transitional plan.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to add to the confidentiality. For Pat and myself, we have what they call a confidentiality sheet that we share with the participant, and we tell them, Pat and I, we have to sign it to say that this is confidential. We cannot do, there's a list of things they tell us we cannot do. And we keep that in their file so that they know that it's not only our word, but just like you said, Father, it's by court that we cannot talk about anything that is discussed in that circle. So
Right.
go.
Right.
Mhm.
So talk a little bit about graduation, Jackie. Maybe talk about the latest graduation and what was that? What was that like? What was what would you highlight from that celebration?
Well, I want to say we had, I think, over 80 people graduated. Uh, we probably would have had more, but a lot of the people have gone back to their work. You know, they're doing their daily works again. And I want to say that highlight was very, very, very exciting. Exciting for me because it's almost like you're watching, you know, one of your best students, you know, get up there and talk about this is where I was. This is where I came to, and this is where I am right now. Um, I've heard nothing but great things about the people. They like, when I say they, our participants enjoy the fact that they have accomplished something out of a minor, Pat and I like to call it a minor hiccup. You know, there's a saying that I try to put in all of our circles before we start. You know, we should never be judged for the one mistake that we've done forever. You know, once you're forgiving about that, don't keep bringing it up. You know, and I have to say, one gentleman that he just breezed through it. He was so happy that he had this opportunity, and he was excited that he even got through the graduation. A lot of people tell us, you know, I don't know if I'm going to live past X amount of things. And we always try to say, be positive. If you think that this is going to be true, it's going to be true. But if you think that it's not, it's not. So in our circles, that's what we like to do. And at that graduation, you see the smiles on their face. You see, I think the first graduation we had, the guys are coming in their hoodies and jeans, and they look like they just rolled out of bed. But this time, I mean, I was so impressed. They dressed up, they had nice sweaters on, they were sitting up straight, they were acknowledging everybody. And the good thing about it, they were talking to different people about their experience. You didn't have myself or Pat Winters talking about, oh, yeah, this is what they did. No, that was the most exciting thing because I said, your voice is more important than mine. Your voice is the voice, is why we're here. But that graduation was really exciting. And then we had, you know, a little luncheon after that for them. They got a little certificate plaque with their name on it, encased in plastic. You know, we want to make it, you know, it's not like rewarding bad behavior, but we want to say you went through this process proudly with an open mind. So we want to say at least thank you for making us successful because of you. Now you go back out in our neighborhood and you know now I can see you by name and say, "Oh, hi Joe, hi Charlie," you know, when I see you in the store because it makes me feel good that I can see you doing what you were supposed to be doing anyway. And it's just that little hiccup. But the graduation was fantastic. It was just
Yeah,
a great celebration.
yeah. Now we have the one picture with the chief judge. They're presenting to one of the young men. graduates. And one comment, and this is, I think this regards just to restorative justice in general. I still think there is this whole sense sometimes that that restorative justice is this new age thing and all this. And again, part of the whole process for us is how do we continue to educate people and help them to realize that this is an age-old process that thankfully we've been able to adapt in the criminal justice system and actually in many parishes and communities to facilitate active listening of each other, and then finding ways to bond and bring together the resources, various resources and gifts and talents that people have, to perhaps act for change in the community. The chief judge is, he is a big proponent of this. I have to be honest. He sometimes he doesn't understand the dynamics of the court because I've heard him describe it. Certain events that I've been at, where he says essentially that these young men or women are invited to be a part of the process, and then he gets to the circle process and says, and this is where they're told what they need to do to fulfill their to repair the harm, and I have to keep correcting him to say no. This is totally restorative. They decide what they want to do, and can we plant ideas, can we suggest things, absolutely, but the bottom line is they make the decision, they make the plan, and and to lay that out very clearly. The other dynamic too is again, I think the availability of circle keepers for the court. Right now I think there's a backlog. We've got a limited number of circle keepers. It is a commitment, and obviously if it's paid, it's a job, which can be helpful. But I think that's the ongoing struggle is getting more. And then the final thing I'll say, before we open up for questions is that based on the experience here, Chicago has opened up, or Cook County has opened up, what, 3 more courts, Jackie?
Yes.
3 more courts, and in the process of looking at other communities as well to do that. So the success is spreading. The idea is that there would be a restorative justice court in every community, in the city, and perhaps throughout the state. So that's the eventual goal. So with that, Brother George, I'll turn it back over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Larry and Jackie. I guess, first of all, can you describe how you set this up, how you began it? I imagine a lot of the people who will watch this later on will want to know, like, what do I do to initiate a process in my location?
Sure. So it really originated for us out of we were working with an organization in Chicago called Community Renewal Society on doing some criminal justice reform, and a campaign that we called the Reclaim Campaign. And that was to work with, the state's attorney's office, work with the sheriff in regarding, the numbers of people in the jail, work with the chief judge on bail reform, but also on looking at the possibilities of an alternative court, that would focus on, actually helping someone emerge without a record. And took a while to push that, but there was a group in the community, of what we call a restorative justice hub that really pressured the chief judge for that, and along with the Community Renewal Society, and eventually he brought in another judge who was very much of the same mind, had some background in restorative justice, and decided to pull together a representative group from the community and from the system to be able to just begin conversation, and then say, okay, we got equal numbers. We got 7 from the community. We got 7 from from the system, and how do we come together, and what are the various ways that we can work together? What are the different aspects from basically what will the court look like? What's going to be the process for someone to go through the court? Where will the court be located? Logistics of that. Funding for the court. Across the board, looking at just the various details to try to make sure that when we started that we had as much in place as we could. Now we still ended up starting, I think, too early because, and my main reason for saying that is I don't think we had enough circle keepers and enough of case managers at the time, but we still managed, thanks to Jackie and Pat and a few others who were willing to step up. But for me, it really is, was a learning process going through it for 2 years in the design of the process. And then, and we looked at other models throughout the country as well. I mean, we visited New York and, Red Cloud and some of those places. But bottom line was, kind of this is going to be unique to Chicago, unique to our system. And so how do we design it in the best way and then implement it to the best of our ability? So it is a community, it's a community center court, and it's not a court in the community, but it's a community court, of Cook County that is specifically focused on helping this group of young people, and emerging adults to, transition, and to be able to, correct, mistakes they made and reintegrate the community in the most successful way with the support of the community.
So it sounds like you began really at a grassroots level and you went to the judges rather than go, say, to the district attorney.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. The grassroots. Yeah. I mean, again, kind of the rules of community organizing is, you do the organizing at the grassroots level, and then reach a point where it's like it's hard for them to turn away a large group of people that are saying, we need this and we want to have conversations around this. So Jackie was involved in a similar effort, with us and regarding starting a free mental health center in the community as well. That was totally grassroots until we got it on the ballot, and then went to the local politicians that are going to support this. And for them, they pretty much had to because the community was clear the community wanted it. So, but the grassroots approach is absolutely, I think, the way to go. And in a lot of ways, the most satisfying and the most practical in terms of, I think, of restorative practices. You build those relationships, you build that passion, and a collective passion to go out and, and then engage the system, in the transformation that needs to happen.
Great. Thank you. I have a couple of questions for Jackie too. Jackie, what would you describe as some of the biggest obstacles or challenges as you were beginning this?
Father George, the biggest challenge is getting more victims involved. It's really hard to have only one person saying, I want to be a part of this, I want to be sorry, but we want them to have a person that they can look across that circle and say, this is the person you harmed. So let's get together and talk about how that person feels. I think that was the biggest obstacle. And then another thing is just basically trying to find out how can, Pat has an approach, I have an approach, our supervisor, Audrey Dunford, she has an approach, but we have to get together. We have weekly meetings to find out what other issues do we have. And that was one of them. Number one was getting the victim involved. I would say number two is having more people in the community. This is a community-based program, and we would love to have more people involved. This is just my opinion. I think we have our court at 9 o'clock in the morning. And the majority of our community, they are working class people, so they're at work. So not that they don't want to come, but I don't think we have court at night. So we do our court during the day, so that's why they can't come. But I think those are the two biggest obstacles that I've had in the very beginning. And maybe there's three, because people have to understand that when you get involved in restorative justice court, it is not a me. You can't be selfish. We are trying to change the way people look at our community. So we have to look at that individual and say, how do we help you? And I think that those three things would be the biggest obstacles that we've had so far.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to share with you some visuals too of your work. And as we're looking at that too, Jackie, can you say a little more about how do you talk to the victims? How do you counsel, support, or perhaps coach them?
Well, what? We want them to be open-minded. We know something have been taken away from them, that a lot of times cannot either be Okay, if somebody takes somebody's car, and you destroy it, you can fix that car, but that initial shock of that happening, and in that circle, you have all that you can talk about. You can talk about how you feel. You can talk about, you know, I hope, and that's what I would always love for the victim to say to the participant that did the harm, that I hope that this circle help you think better and that you don't come out again and do this to somebody else. I hope that this really helps you. I hope that what I'm saying is really going to affect you so that you can change. Because I think a lot of times, and we've only had a couple of victims to join our circles, I think all they want is to see a change. They want to go to work, they just want to not see as much, crime in our neighborhood. And if we don't speak up about it or tell the people that's doing it, you can do better. Yes, I'm upset with you. And, we can't sugarcoat stuff. You know, if the victim is upset, be upset. But we are in that realm of that circle and we have values in our circle. So these values you should be able to take out into the real world when you're done with our program.
Can you give a couple examples of like the types of crimes you mentioned, car theft, and also perhaps how some individual examples were addressed and their outcomes without getting into
Okay,
people first?
right. So, like I said before, in the very beginning, we were getting drug cases. Um, and then it moved on to gun cases. Now, these are number one, first time offenders. These are non-violent crimes. So they are carrying a gun or a firearm without the proper identification. And I would have to say 90% of our people that get stopped, they get stopped because a broken tail light. They get stopped because they don't have proper driver's license. And then that probable cause, if you get stopped and the police looks in your car and they see a handle, they're going to ask questions. I can't speak for a police officer, but our thing is that probable cause. Do you have a gun? Yes. Do you have proper identification? No. And that's when this whole process starts. You know, we haven't had any nonviolent crimes. If somebody uh, takes somebody's car, they take it for a joyride. I mean, they may take stuff out, but nothing, we don't do felonies. I don't know how we here in North Lawndale could do felonies, but we don't do felonies. So our crimes are all nonviolent. And what we do is we have to talk about that. The interesting part of the circle process is a lot of our participants say, nobody ever asked our opinion. Nobody ever asked that, why I did this. Nobody asked that, am I important? They think that I'm just sitting out here just waiting for somebody, and that's not the case. Um, we get a chance, we get an opportunity to see a different person when we are in circle as opposed to that person out in the streets, because you have to understand their friends influence them. In one circle, we had a gentleman that decided, without divulging any secrets or anything, that he's going to change his friends. I thought that that was admirable of him. A lot of people, they say they want to change, but then they go back and do the same thing. If we don't implement programs that's going to make our participants successful, like some of them need something as simple as housing. We have people that are, in shelters, homeless shelters. We just worked with a program that we had, I think, 6 people that needed an apartment. This program worked with them and got them all apartments, so they're all set. Um, but we have to be mindful that I mean, I don't think we've had people to come in and I just want to get through the program and I don't want to have to think about it. You know, once you do 2 circles with Pat and myself, it's almost like, okay, the ball is in your court. The judge does not want to hear from us. They want to hear from you. So how do you feel about this? What can you do to change? It's those open-ended questions that we have to ask and not give them that opportunity to say, okay, so how you doing? Okay. Well, what are you thinking about? Oh, I don't know. No, we use open-ended questions so that they can give us a complete sentence, a complete thought, so that we are complete in trying to help them. You know, you don't go anywhere with yes and no yes and no answers. And that's when those circles become longer and longer and longer. But, you know, we have a group of people that are dedicated to this program and dedicated to doing as much. When I say good, I know sometimes it sounds very trite, but it is good. It is finding that good in that person so that person can find that good in our community. So, you know, if we don't try, you know, or somebody even say to their friends, you know what, I'm not going to do this, I'm staying in. One young man told me him and his girlfriend, they stayed in for New Year's. He said, this was last year, I'd be out partying, shooting a gun. He says, but remember, and he told me, he goes, you know, Jackie, they took my gun and you know I'm not getting it back. I said, absolutely. I said,
Right.
absolutely, you're not getting it back. And he said, okay, because you know what? I don't think I'm ready for it right now. And that was not even in the circle. That was just standing out in the hall waiting for court to start. And for him to even say that, I am not ready yet, that proved to Pat and myself that we are doing something very, very good. So,
Mhm.
um, thanks to
Wonderful.
Pat.
That's great.
She's
Yeah.
the calmer person than I am. But yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
And I'm aware too, in the time that we have left, in addition to the wonderful work you're doing with these alternative, um, the community court restorative justice program, can you say a little bit about your parenting circles and your work, restorative justice work in the Cook County Jail?
Sure. So for years now, we have been actually of 2 staff people who are going in, both formerly incarcerated, both who did bad things early on and got their life together and supported to really change their own lives, and that now they are going in, actually funded by the parish to go into the local jail, to Cook County Jail, to work with 15 to 20 young men twice a week, and engage them in circles that where they can talk about life skills, manhood skills, challenges of reentry, and really talk honestly about their feelings, which is not typically happen in jail. But these also are 2 individuals who who have been there, have experienced the worst of jails and prison, and so can speak to their own experience and obviously encouragement to move on and move out. So we so when they get out, they typically will connect with us. We're actually in the process of connecting with a number of different organizations in Chicago now that are doing reentry work, mainly with focus on 3 major areas, and that's placement of in housing, it's jobs, but it's also accompaniment, which is the I think the huge part, accompaniment and helping with wraparound services and things like that, so that as we provide those things, there's typically 2 people that are journeying with them, to encourage them and challenge them and do all that to stay on track. And so I think there's an emergence of more and more organizations that are doing that, and led by returning citizens, and that's and so part of my goal is to continue to support them as they work in the community here on the west side, but really throughout Chicago. The the circles that we do with parents. So we actually started the circle process, as part of this initial effort to just build relationships with people in the community. Every Christmas, we, have for 20, 25 years now, have served about 1,000 individuals, about 400 families in the community. And typically what they would do is they come and apply in October for what they would like, and then in December come and pick it up. And that's, when I first got here 18 years ago, it was like, okay, this is not going to work. We've got to spend time and build relationships with people and, invite them into the life of the church and all that as well. So we did that. And then, and so we had circles with parents. They loved it. Initially, they were very apprehensive about it, but they loved it because we were focusing on them and what they brought, their own experience, their wisdom, their experience, and their hopes and dreams for their kids and for the community, and also to be able to talk about the challenges that they faced. We were able to start parenting classes with a group called Parenting for Nonviolence. We teach classes that basically are interactive with parents and we don't call it parenting, we call it from stressed to blessed. And it's an 8-week program, basically helping parents to, enhance their communication skills with their kids, to, focus on self-care and then on conflict resolution. Out of that, we have formed a whole ministry of parent-to-parent outreach. And so we have an individual who's on staff who works with parents in the community and basically pairing parents up, with others, getting together in groups and talking about issues that face them, bringing the kids in the midst of it all as well to work with them, the parents and the kids together. And that's really been a heavy focus for us in the parish, is really whole family ministry, whole family support. And so when we have the parenting classes, we in the last session, graduation, whatever we call it, we bring the kids in and we start working with parents and the kids together and get them talking, because we find out that conversation isn't happening a lot in the homes, mainly because of the pressures parents feel, long days that they spend working, and so giving the opportunity in a safe space to be able for the kids to be able to speak and the parents to listen is often a eye opener for a lot of parents. So that process has been very helpful. We're teaching them methodologies to take home to do circles once a week in their homes, put away all the social media stuff and just sit and have conversations. And we give them, reflection questions to start and things like that. But the overall goal is to build a network of parents supporting parents, and ultimately to start working on some community organizing of those parents to bring about some of the necessary change. Again, the grassroots approach.
And could you say some more about the work in the jail?
So in the jail, so more about in the jail. Okay. So Derek and Fred, who are the ones who work in the jail, so they gather with these young men. They the men are essentially taken out of their space where they're where they're held. They are given the opportunity to be a part of this, and it's really become a popular program within the jail for them to come together and sit and just again, just reflect on what were the pressures that brought them to where they are now in the jail, to start expressing within circle their hopes and dreams for when they get out and what that could be like. We occasionally are allowed to bring food in and feed them, so we do that every once in a while, and just have a little refreshment, and things are real tight in the jail, as you can imagine, but we've been able to kind of work in that context, and then simple things like bringing in envelopes and stamps and things like that, and having them write letters to loved ones and those sorts of things, and making sure those get those get delivered as well. So a lot of it is, it really is about, connecting with them and connecting with where they're at. Also letting them know that there are people that care on the outside and want to help them and want them to take a different path, and not go the path that, go back to where they came from, and to the same sort of thing that they ended up, that got them into jail and to begin with. So so in the mix of that, all that, and it's either the question about, being a part of the faith community. We are introducing more and more, especially of our parents, to the faith community. They see the parish as caring and as all of that, but there's a lot more we can be doing deliberately to engage them in conversations on faith and connection to the worship community, which we have a very vibrant worship, African American contemporary gospel, and it really is good. But that those connections aren't necessarily there. Over the 18 years I've been here, we've done a survey of parents every year to ask, about their involvement in a faith community, their connection to, and initially the numbers were like 70%, had a faith community that they worshiped regularly at, and 30% did not. Just this past year, it's 20% have a place and 80% do not. And so there's a group out there that is ripe. Doesn't mean they don't have faith, but the importance of the faith community to them has drifted off. In a lot of ways, it's an opportunity to reconnect. So appreciate that question, because it's something that we're wrestling with right now, and how to do that, and how to engage those people that we are working with in these other programs, to be able to invite them into both the work and the worship that sustains that work.
How do you invite, say, the parishioners of your parish to be more involved in the work you're doing with the?
So again, that's a good question. So it's a work in progress. With the formation of our new parish that encompasses now 2 church locations, we are very deliberately, forming groups that are going to do direct connection to these organizations, and to these different groups, to offer breakouts on faith, faith formation, faith reflection, spiritual reflection. We've got a number of different ways that we could do that. We actually started a tech lab, pretty sophisticated tech lab, 9 years ago now, that we run a journalism program that teaches journalism skills and social media marketing and broadcast media, that we have about 40 students in. Again, connecting them and having the youth involved in conversations of faith is something we're beginning to do. But also, how do we utilize that social media, to produce programming that would be evangelizing to parents, to youth, to others. And I think that's the ongoing invitation and challenge that we have to be able to, to make that faith and faith community connection, which every time I talk to a group of parents, it's always give your child and give yourself a gift. And that's the gift of the faith community. Attach yourself to somewhere, where, there you feel that sense of support, but also you feel like you're invited to participate. I'm not necessarily proselytizing Catholicism, though I love Catholicism, but just to have a faith community and to connect with it. And then the other thing that I emphasize as well is, the importance of the family meal, and just the essential importance of gathering at least once a week together. Again, no phone, social media, and sitting down and sharing a meal together. And the powerful effect that can have on communication in the home, actually performance in school, and a number of other things. And parents who have tried it, are like, wow, this is cool. Never thought about that. But again, I can go off on this in terms of the Eucharist. It's like that's the core of the Eucharist. It's the Eucharist is a family meal. We get together, we greet each other, we share stories, we pray, we share a meal together, and then we pray and get up and go and to do our things. And so if that model of family meal isn't there for parents, then the Eucharist isn't always going to make a lot of sense in the ways that we celebrate it. So, anyway, that's kind of my focus on where we're at. We're using restorative justice in practice in a lot of different ways. Anti-racism conversations and those sorts of things as well.
Great, thank you, Father Larry. And Jackie, was there anything that we haven't addressed that you might want to, anything last comments before we finish up?
The only thing, Father George, I'd like to say that if you get anybody involved in this program, the Restorative Justice Program, they just have to be dedicated. Say what you mean and mean what you say to the participants that you talk with, and no judging. And just be open-minded. That's all I have to say.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you for your dedication. Thank you both again for your
You're welcome.
for your example, for your work. And God bless you in your work and all those people that you're serving.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody.